Welcome to Module 4, Statutes. On the agenda this week, we are going to talk about publishing and citation of statutes, how to locate them, and how to navigate them once you are there. But a quick announcement first. I want to mention again that all of your grades are set to check minus by default. So each time I submit grades, the assignment will change from failing to passing one by one until I submit the very last grades and everyone passes the class. So if you are viewing this video, you have already encountered the accessing assignment feedback video that shows you how to get your feedback once I do release it. Our warm-up this week had you do a couple helpful things. First of all, on Westlaw, you were using the popular name table to find a title of the U.S. Code and then to cite that code section. So the title was Title 18. Here's the citation. And then if you needed assistance, you could have used the How Do I called Find Federal Statutes by Popular Name. If you had done that, you would have ended up here for the RICO listing on the popular name table where you could see the citation and you know that the 18 refers to Title 18. And then you can click into it to make it out to Section 1961, which it looks like is the definitions section. So if you were looking for a code section that discusses the activities prohibited by RICO, it's not in the definitions section. So you would have had to open the table of contents and find a nearby section, like 1962, which covers prohibited activities. All right. So then number 2, question 2, had you access that statute, that prohibited activities statute, find out when that statute was last amended, use the citing references to locate a case, and provide your research trails. So let's look at that really quick. Should you have used the 1961 definitions? No, that's not discussing the activities prohibited by RICO. But just in case you did use that one was last amended in 2022. What you should have been using for question 2 was 1962, the prohibited activities statute you found. And if you were using that one, then your answer was it was last amended in 1988. So moving on from this one to answer the next part, you're going to use the statute's citing references. So that's that tab right up here. You're going to locate the most recent U.S. Supreme Court case that cited this statute, so citing references cases, and then you're going to provide the citation to that case. So now that we're in 24,000 cases, we're going to filter that down to jurisdiction Supreme Court, and then once we're there, we can sort by date. So I believe the medical marijuana versus Horn is the most recent U.S. Supreme Court case that has cited this statute. And then your research trail could have looked something like this. So since we're just doing a research trail for question 2, we were already at the statute. So it just begins with the statute. And then from there, citing references tab, cases, we're going to filter by jurisdiction, federal, Supreme Court. And then once we were there, we sorted by date. So that tells me all the steps I just ran through in a nice, tidy research trail. So this module's objectives are to know what statutes are and how they're created, to understand annotated codes and to be able to effectively use them, to recognize citations to both federal and California statutes, and to locate statutory sections in both the U.S. Code and the California Code. So let's orient ourselves in the big picture. I like to remind you where we are. So we're in the research quadrant of legal practice. And remember, I want you to leave this class knowing the process. How many of the 5 steps can you already list here in week 4? Why don't you pause the video for just a second and test yourself? Try to name all 5 of them right now. All right. Did you pause it? Are you back? Did you get the first step? The first step is create a research plan. The 5 W's, followed by those questions you ask yourself to develop your strategy. The second step, that's the one we spent 2 weeks on. That one's secondary sources. And then we move on to locating primary authority, expanding and updating that primary authority, and then analyzing and organizing. Again, it being an iterative process the entire way through, you end up going back 2 steps forward, 1 step back until you make it through to your answer. So we're here in step 3 to talk about statutes, primary authority. But because we like to scaffold in this class and because you learn research by practicing it, we are going to practice step 1 before we get into statute. So in just a moment, you will open up the learning exercise in Word and you will fill in a research plan. Recall that the research plan starts with your five W's and then moves into strategy. So you're going to list your legal issue and your legal topic. Remember that your legal topic is broad. Ask yourself what law school class would cover this. Is it torts? Is it contracts? Is it criminal law? And the legal issue is narrow. Feel free to grab this directly from the assignment. It'll say, your task is to research the following. Whatever follows that, just grab it and plop it down as your legal issue. And then don't forget to refer back to it. Don't just put it in that box and forget about it while you do your research. It's there so that you stay on track as you do your research. Okay, the jurisdiction is your threshold question. Of course, you don't start your research till you've nailed this down. Is there any context? Have you been given a starting point, a freebie, and good keywords? Your results will be unhelpful if your keywords are bad. It's time. So open up your learning exercise for this week. We are leaving the rap battle behind for now, and we are going to deal with oat milk in our coffee. So go ahead and read the fact pattern. It's here if you want to pause, or you can read it from your own copy of the exercise. Go ahead and do that. And then let's fill in the research plan. So the first two W's, who and what. So for who, you're going to think about the parties, what are their entities, and how are they legally related. So the parties, plaintiff and defendant, we're labeling them Carolyn and Jeannie, Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. Who are they? What kind of entities are they? They are frequent guests to Coffee Bean. They are lactose intolerant individuals. The defendant is a coffee shop. And then what are their relationships? So it's a retail relationship, right? So they are customer and business or purchaser and seller. And then the what. So legally relevant things, actions, and issues. So they frequented Coffee Bean for years. They always order drinks containing non-dairy milk. Coffee Bean always adds the surcharge, and it's resulted in substantial cost added up over the years. Since intolerance causes severe discomfort, it can limit major life activities. They're arguing that it's a disability. So if it is a disability, does the surcharge constitute discrimination based on that disability? All right, next W's. When? 6 months ago-ish? We need to know when they started going to Coffee Bean. If they stopped going, how long ago did they stop? How often is frequently? We need to narrow this down a little bit more. Where did it happen? Maybe Los Angeles. We know the law firm's in Santa Barbara. The attorney wants to file in the Central District, federal court. Why? What's the resolution? What's the remedies? We're not sure given the fact pattern. We'd have to ask our client. All right, so the strategy questions, the first three strategy questions. What's your legal issue? Again, just grab that from the scenario, the fact pattern. Assuming lactose intolerance is a disability, remember, you do not research whether it is. You might want to write that down. It's helpful to know what you're not researching as well as what you are researching. So assuming that it's a disability, does that surcharge constitute disability discrimination? That's your legal issue. What's the topic for this? The umbrella topic that might be a law school class. Would it be disability law? That could be a law school class. What other broad legal topic could cover discrimination? I've got one in mind, but I don't want to give it away yet. We're going to get there. Jurisdiction. So you answer each of these questions as you're filling in your research plan. First question, what court will your case be filed in? We've got that. The U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. It's a federal court. Is it a state law issue, a federal law issue, or both? We know it's both. For state law issues, which state, California, and which courts are going to be binding. So we're going to have the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and the United States Supreme Court are going to be binding on the federal law. And I think my slide cut out because then we've got the California Supreme Court, which is going to be binding on California law. All right. Rounding out the end of our research plan, we've got our context. So who's your client? The plaintiffs are our client. What stage of litigation are you in? What's your final product? Oh, we're going to be preparing a short memo. It's going to be due by the end of the week. That's going to inform our strategy. How long we spend on this research is going to be important for knowing what our final product is going to be. And then starting points. We were given freebies in this case. We were given two laws. We were given the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Unrest Civil Rights Act. Freebies, we didn't even have to figure out which statutes were at play here. And then keywords. Very basic one is disability discrimination. What else? Did you think of any other keywords? If not, maybe you can add them to your research plan later as you make your way through this project. Okay, so go ahead and complete that in your own research plan and your learning exercise. And after you've filled that part in, go ahead and stop, and then come back on and join me for lecture video 2.